Are you ready? We are back. It is a live episode of Chief in the North with Seth Kaiser and Dummy, your host and supervisor here. Don't mind me. I'm just here to move things along. We are excited because Chiefs have a chance to go 3-0 against a team that, quite honestly, is going to have a hard time keeping up with them. So we're going to get into Seth's thoughts, my thoughts, maybe even answer some of your questions. I'm ready. I hope you're ready. This is it. Welcome to Chief in the North. Congratulations to me. I hit the right intro. That was close.
You did. I was so curious what you would do there. That was awesome. And seriously, that now I can say with you actually being here in the room, that intro is so like I sent it to Briscoe and he replied with like a bunch of fire emojis. And I was just like, the entire production thereafter is going to be such a letdown to people because they're going to go from that to like, well, no, that's just him with an okay mic and regular camera and nothing else. You know what? That's true. It's all accurate. But man, I'm excited to be going live with you today. I feel like I'm going to probably try to take over a little more than normal because normally this is my show. So right now, what many of you fine folk would be experiencing.
There you go.
I thought that was intentional. What many of you fine folk right now would be experiencing would be me getting some introductions in and getting ready to take some mailbag questions, which I'm going to take a look and see from last week's mailbag. I'm going to see what they are and what they have to say. We'll look at a few of them. But it would also, you see how there's just a little bit of light there? Normally, it would be dark because I'd be doing it like 5 in the morning because that's what I've been doing. In part to have some evenings. My wife asked me if this year during football season, I would occasionally be available in the evenings to like help her parent and like raise the children that I helped create, whatever. I don't know. I wouldn't be paying attention. So we've been recording it. And then today, Ryan was available. We were like, you know what we should do? We should go live. And so here we are. And it's awesome, man. Ryan, it's so good to see you, man. How's it going?
You too, buddy. I've been crushing it too. Time is a finite thing that I don't seem to have enough of. Kids sports and coaching and that kind of stuff has changed my fall this year. So it's definitely something that this was a rarity for a Thursday for me since school started. So, hey, I'm happy to be a guest on your show now.
You know what? This is my show, and I want you to really not forget it. I mean, yes, you're pushing all the buttons and you run literally everything, and you could kick me out at any point, and you could mute me and basically do whatever you want, probably draw like little horns on my head or something. I don't know. I hope you don't. But other than that, I'm the captain now. This is my show, and I'm excited. So one different thing for everyone who's watching tonight that has been watching the streams that have been posted lately, I will actually be able to see your super chats and your questions. So if you want to get in questions tonight, you can, throw a question mark in front of them. Put mailbag. I don't care, whatever, to where we can see it. The way Ryan would have you do it is the way to do it. So I'm excited for this. It's awesome, man. So I'm excited. We haven't really chatted much this year. Since the season began. So before I go and take a look at some of these mailbag questions from last week, I'm just curious, what so far describe the Chiefs season to me in a nutshell? We're 2 games in and the Chiefs are
chugging right along. Like they're not going down the hill, like they're just cruising. The offense is good. Defense is supporting itself.
Yes.
Very happy that most of our preseason thoughts have come to fruition, right? Karlaftis looks solid. We're still waiting for him to get that first sack of the regular season. I think it's coming this week myself. But I want to pump him up because people were a little frustrated about, reaction to his draft selection. And this is why, folks. He's producing he's tied for the lead in producing pressure from the rookie class of edge rushers.
Right.
That's significant. And I didn't see that coming. I thought he'd be solid. I didn't think he'd be up there with Aiden Hutchinson. So That's a significant difference. And I know that you've been tracking some of the rookies maybe more than you usually do as well.
Yes. And don't try to take control of this show.
Sorry.
You see how he did that? He caught the bullet and winged it back at me. That was amazing. No, you're just so good at it. I was like, oh man, what a great question. Wait a minute. So here's what you'd mentioned with Karlaftis is interesting. I don't know how much of his tape you've watched. What I've found interesting is that even as he's kind of piecing it together in terms of what it looks like in terms to win his one-on-one reps, he hasn't been, I wouldn't call him, he hasn't been dominant or even, I would even say above average beating linemen one-on-one to this point. You can tell he's feeling his way through, okay, bull rushes, what kind of works there. And he's done some good things there. But where he's done most of his damage in terms of pressures have been either motor stuff or, and much more importantly, I think, within the framework of Spagnuolo's stunts.
Mm-hmm.
He's shown kind of a knack for that, and it's really benefited them on multiple snaps. And it's just kind of cool to me that, we'll see how things go for him overall, but he's made himself a functional part of the pass rotation just by executing the assignments.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And it's something that he was able to help against the Cardinals. It wasn't like a dominant one-on-one game, but it was within the framework of the defense. He did a good job, and he had a few pressures against the Chargers as well. The defense as a whole, talking about pressure, the first half against the Chargers, I got worried. Yeah. Like, it was – and just on a side note, because people are going to ask about it. Zion Johnson and Chris Jones were matched up one-on-one on pass pro reps like 3 times. What did you get 4 or 3?
I got 3.
Yeah, that's
sorry. That's a lazy pinky.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure because and hey, on 2 of them, I would say Zion won. 1 of them, I'd say Jones won, but the ball was out. Is that really impressive for a rookie? Absolutely. He showed the strength, the functional strength, the grown man strength to hold against a Chris Jones bull. And also, and this is where most guys fail there, he didn't get tossed.
Exactly.
Because Jones converts from that bull rush to a push-pull, whatever you want to call it, or he'll convert it to a swim. He does that better than anyone. And most guys don't have the strength and the bounce. They've got to lean so hard into it that the minute he shifts it and he's so strong throwing aside, it's over. He struggled more with Mike Dana and Tershawn Wharton.
Yep.
He struggled with some speed moves.
Quickness.
But here's the deal. For one thing, Chris Jones didn't just get switched mid-game. He did line up against the left guard several times, even prior to those good reps by Zion Johnson. It's a bit, the announcers talked about it, and so then it becomes a big thing. Right. Great reps by Zion Johnson. Yeah. Brandon Thorne talked about it. And he didn't do any hot takes about it. He was actually a little more measured, like, there was some other stuff there too. But great reps. Awesome for the rookie. But this idea that like Chris Jones was getting shut down one-on-one constantly by Zion Johnson, it's just not true. They weren't matched up a lot. And the other side of it is Spags decided to hit the easy button there. And he said, that guy does well against Jones' strength rather than waiting all game for Jones to figure him out. And look, he would have. I've watched him figure out Q. I've watched him figure out Zach Martin. You can't tell me that Zion Johnson was going to be the first guard that Jones wouldn't get all game. He'd have got him eventually. Yeah. And he probably would have got him when he converted to some of these speed moves because Wharton and Dana gave him problems. Yeah. And I was just curious if you saw anything similar.
I saw the very same thing. In particular, when you started to see the fact that he's dealing with him in a way that hardened veterans cannot, because later in the game you saw the sack there right on the 1 yard line, right?
Yeah,
where Jones did more of a speed move. I wouldn't call it speed, but it was a feint to the outside coming back in with the double arm sweep, and that crushed a guy that they went out and signed as a free agent because he was that good, and yet Zion was able to counter, if not better moves, at least something of the same caliber. So I think that gives you an idea, like guard to guard, where Zion is. Like he is that good.
Yeah, Zion's going to be a problem. They're doing a good job with that offensive line. It really hurt them having Lindsley go out. That was tough. I mean, he's a good center. So it's just one of those things. That's just like a little side narrative thing because I wrote about Chris Jones right after the game. And because he affected, for one thing, he literally eliminated 2 third downs. I can't exaggerate or overstate the importance of that. Imagine if before a third down occurred, everything paused and a genie appeared in front of you and said, I can make this third down automatically go away. You know, that would, you'd be like, wow, that's awesome. What a huge thing. If you could just pick like certain types of plays to where you get to pick a couple of them that are eliminated, third down, you'd say, I need a couple of third downs, just get him out of here. Jones did that. And then you also had other snaps where he was pretty highly impactful. And I got a chance to show kind of how frightened the Chargers were of him, which they should be. That's what it also shows how hard it is to consistently dominate from a defensive tackle standpoint, because eventually you're going to be put in a position where they're just going to put the center right there. And that's why Dana and Clark, when Clark just smacked Justin Herbert after he got hurt, which, I mean, I felt bad. I can't believe they kept him in that game. Like, he threw that dart. But that was like, man, it's week 2.
I mean, this is the same medical staff that like punctured their own quarterback's lungs. So let's not put anything past them.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it is week 2, man. Like, and it sounds like it worked out. Sounds like he's okay, but that could have been way worse because Clark hit him harder than Dana did when he got hurt. And I mean, that was like, I was just waiting for like, well, they were slightly cracked originally and now they're broken. You know, he's got a long, you know, he's got a rib sticking out of his side. That was dumb on their part. But the reason that Dana and Clark were able to make that stunt work so successfully is because it was a 2-on-2 game and there was no help inside. So when Clark looped inside with Dana cutting up the field to take the guard's attention, there was no help to remotely slow him down. And why? Because Chris Jones had the center and left guard saying, no, you, not you, anyone but you.
You will not pass.
Yeah, you shall not pass. So I thought that was interesting. I was curious, though, if you saw anything else in the pass rush. Some of their games and like the complementary pass rush started getting home late on Herbert because he's a good quarterback. The ball kept coming out, so you didn't have a ton of sacks, but that dude was getting hit in a way that I would think a lesser quarterback, it would have affected him even more.
I will tell you 2 things that I noticed is I didn't think that we'd be in a situation where Carlos Dunlap was providing secondary pass rush.
Yeah.
And clearly they're not using him as a starter. They're babying him along, and maybe it's the Achilles and maybe it's just a veteran. I don't care. It's enough firepower that they can go to the NASCAR with multiple setups, something you and I have been talking about for, I don't know, 4 seasons, about trying to get 3 rush ends on the field at the same time. And now they're doing it in different combinations, and it's working. Mm-hmm. That fact we talked about with Chris was out of the NASCAR with Mike Dana inside with him, right? So I think that means a lot. But I also think that what they were able to do is not shy away from the matchup with Williams, but I think the secondary tightened up and raised their level of play across the board, which forced Herbert to hold the ball a little bit longer. It wasn't drastic, but it was enough to generate those hits, I think.
Right. Yeah, shout out to Jalen Watson, who has been pressed into duty, and he hasn't been incredible, but he's made them earn it. Like a couple of those catches Mike Williams had, what are you going to do? You know? Sometimes you just get got. It's like when people were really coming down on L'Jarius Sneed and Charvarius Ward after their game against the Bengals last year. It's like, what? Like, sometimes you just get got. You've got great coverage, and it just happens. And that's what happened there. I will say, I don't know, did you have a chance to look at Trent McDuffie's snaps before he got hurt?
I did not. I've been meaning to go back. I just haven't had the time to go back that far.
Sure. He looked so good. And now the Cardinals were down some guys, and so who knows, right?
Yeah, it wasn't Nuke, but what are you going to do?
Right, yeah. So it's hard to say how he would perform against elite guys, and like contested catch guys were kind of supposed to be his kryptonite. So we'll see. But he looked so good and so smooth in Spag zones. I mean, I was so sad that he got hurt because I think there's a slight chance he comes back down the stretch, similar to like what we had happen with L'Jarius Sneed a couple years ago. When Sneed came back, it was like, man, he might be the best corner on the team.
Hold on.
I think Trent McDuffie, and we'll see, you know, he's 21 snaps or something like that.
Right.
He might be the best corner on the team. And they're now 2-0 in a game and a half without him. One of them being Herbert, big deal.
Right.
But those are just, I don't know, there's just a couple of things early on that I've noticed. I should probably look at a couple of these mailbag questions. Did you see that one of the ones that I was asked is who would be what character escorting Frodo to Mount Doom in Lord of the Rings?
No, I missed that.
That's what's happening when you're gone. I don't even
wait a minute. Let me see. I have to go find that one now.
Yeah, and that one was from a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, it was from Lev Mass. And I picked Creed, by the way, because he's smart, he's strong, he's loyal, he'll never betray you. Creed is Samwise. Like
he looks a little like Sean Astin too.
yeah, he does a little bit, doesn't
really
he? I didn't
does.
want to say that part, but you did.
No, Creed, more power to you.
So I'm going to go through a couple of these mailbag questions, and then Ryan, I know we've got questions here, and so I'll handle this part. You handle that part.
Yeah, let me shout out Jackson Barker right away because Jackson, thanks for becoming the member. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Jackson.
You're going to have a rant from Dan here pretty soon in the member section. I think you guys are going to dig.
So this is from the mailbag last week. We'll get back to our normal course of action. So if you leave a comment, not in the live stream comments, but a comment in the comment section, and you put question marks before the mailbag, I'll try to look at that next week. Okay. So Lev says, Seth, if the entire NFL did a redraft that included GM and head coach, will tend to all other personnel sticks around for this season. It's only current head coaches and GMs that are entering this draft. Would you try to lock up Veach or Reed or any of their peers early on? How many exact position group would you fill in before you try to get solid coaching and managing? So imagine there's a redraft and coaches and GMs are thrown into the mix. How early? Now, so this is like kind of a two-part question. I think this is really interesting when you think about team development. So I'll ask this way. So Lev, I'm gonna mess with this a little bit. I'm gonna give it to Ryan. Ryan, who is the first coach picked, and how early is he picked?
Wow. Is this a true fantasy thing, or we're building a mythical franchise?
We're building a mythical franchise. Everything has the entire NFL is doing a redraft. Every player's up. Every coach is up. Every GM is up.
Just knowing the way that the league runs right now, the first coach selected is McVay because everyone's still high on him. It doesn't matter. He did produce a Super Bowl win. Like, I think that's who they would take first. It'd be after all the quarterbacks. So you have to have a franchise QB on the field to make him worth his money. So, but I do think that that's kind of the way the league would lean. Would I? No, because I think there are some flaws to what he does and the fact that he has to get more creative when pushed, and it's not a natural evolution of the offense every year.
Right.
I noticed that kind of thing, and I'm a little more. Andy would be up there, of course. Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, what's going on in Miami has me starting to think that maybe that might work. I'm not sure.
Yeah, McDaniel looks like he's really good at putting his guys in position to succeed. That was, I mean, and to be fair, Waddle is what fans were hoping, and I don't mean this as a shot, but it is. Waddle is what Chiefs fans were hoping Hardman would be.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Because he's just as fast as Hardman. And I'm not dissing either guy by saying they're about equal speed. I mean, they're both freaks speed-wise. But Waddle is a significantly better route runner. I think he's got a little bit more quickness. He's got a little better catch radius. He's also in addition to being freakish fast, he's above average at wide receiver stuff.
Well, his change of direction is more akin to Tyreek than it is to McCole.
Right. And that doesn't mean it's like there with Tyreek. Like anyone who's like 80% change of direction of Tyreek is like, wow, you're better than most. And when you can have that and elite deep speed and that kind of thing to weaponize that, you should be able to if you're a good coach, especially if you've got a tight end like Gesicki in the middle who can do some other things that can at least draw some attention. But he's doing a good job building around that. And not all coaches do that. I was thinking about this, like the redraft, and I think you're right. I think at least the first 10 picks are quarterbacks, give or take. But I wonder, once you're getting into the, 11, 12, 13 of the world, I think that's when you start going with the coach. And I'm not sure any GM would be a first-round pick.
I don't think so either.
I mean, I like what Brett Veach has done, but I think there are more people who can do what GMs do, at least at a passable level, because the draft is kind of a crapshoot. Like, you don't want a guy that stinks, but like.
Let me ask you this, though. Would you rather have Brett Veach or would you rather have Brandon Beane or Howie Roseman?
Right.
No, I'm asking you. Don't give me that right, counselor. Give me an answer.
I thought you were agreeing with my point.
I am, but.
The thing is, Beane and Roseman have shown multiple years in a row that they can do it and do it in multiple ways. Veach is this year and last year trying to show he can do it in a different way. Can he do it without having the extra change with Mahomes' contract to buy solutions to problems? That's worth noting. That's something. Can he do that? We'll see. Early returns on this draft are good, but we'll see. Returns on last year's draft, really good, but we'll see. Can you do that multiple years in a row? Then we can talk, because he's shown he can do it one way. But that way is, I would argue, some ways kind of the easier way when you just pay good players market value.
True.
Or even above market value, honestly. Watkins and Hitchens, in my opinion, were both overpays.
Or a whole boatload of cash, yes.
Right. So, but I would definitely, I would love to have, I'd love to have Veach. Reed is much more the necessity. I mean, by far. And also, Andy Reid has had other GMs he's worked with very well before. You give Andy Reid an average GM, and he'll build you a contender. Of course, none of it matters if you don't have Patrick Mahomes. So even this whole scenario, it makes me sad a little bit, because I can't imagine what it would be like. The last cheeseball said, I pulled my son out of school early to go to the Chargers game. My question is, how awesome of a dad am I? Okay, you are an awesome dad. Real question is, how many current NFL players make the Chiefs Ring of Honor? It's so hard, because in the moment, you would when you think of say the Chiefs of yesteryear, I would have said during their careers that Derek Johnson and Tamba Hali and Jamal Charles are all automatics. But I don't know if that's really how it's going to work in the end. You only have so many spaces around that stadium.
Mahomes and Kelsey are automatic.
Yeah. And to be fair, the three guys I named, I think they should be automatic. I really do.
Who's the third? Jones?
I named Hali, Derek Johnson, and Jamal Charles.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant currents. Sorry.
Yeah. And so I was just going through current eras. I would say, you said Mahomes and Kelsey are automatic. Chris Jones should be.
I think he needs one more contract to get there, because it's just not enough volume yet.
Right. And Mahomes is an exception to the volume rule, because that's how this works.
Rings on a QB hand wins.
Right. I think if Creed Humphrey, if they break the mold and keep him around for that second contract, I think he could be one day. Same with Trey Smith. I mean, those are guys, but Creed would have a better shot at it, in my opinion. Just because I think he's a better player. And again, that's not a shot at Trey.
I can get that, but Casey Wigman isn't up there. Brian Waters isn't up there.
Now, Brian Waters, I think, is a better comparison, because I think Wigman is a good but not great player. I think Humphrey could be a great player.
I'm just trying to think back to that O-line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that O-line. I mean, it's tough. I mean, obviously Will Shields made it, but he's Will Shields. Come on. So that's a really good point, though, on Brian Waters, because he's a guy you'd think would be in the conversation.
I mean, after Willie and Will, he's next, right?
I think so. Yeah,
I would think so too. And Tate's last out of those five guys.
Yeah, it's just hard to make it up there. So I really don't know who besides those guys we just named, because you need a combination of greatness and longevity with the team.
Yeah,
and that's hard to do. And that's why, when you think of a guy like Eric Berry, probably won't be. That would have been great, but it just didn't work out. It's just hard to have that same longevity to go alongside with the level of play required.
Agreed. And
that's just tough. Let's just see. I've got a couple more, and then I know we've got a bunch of things that we need to get to here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ronald Claremont asks, true or false, when McDuffie returns, he'll take more snaps from Fenton than Jalen Watson?
It's a great question.
That is a great question. Spags does not like to do that. And he actually said something to the media. It's some kind of, people say that I don't like to start rookies, and everyone's like,
because you don't.
Yeah, it's you could just, I'm just picturing Nate and Josh up there, who's going to tell him? There's a reason for that, dude. We watched you let Juan Thornhill just languish in the third safety spot last year. We watched you for 2 years now with Willie Gay Jr. He's good. He's a good football player, and it's obvious. So I would say Fenton, they've shown more of a willingness to bump down than they did like Ward. And there's a reason for that. Fenton's a solid corner, I think, but he has some specific limitations to his game. And those get exposed. And when he has a bad game, it can kind of snowball on him.
Yeah.
That was like a difference like with Ward. He'd have bad games, but it didn't snowball. He really seemed to have that hamster memory that you need as a corner. Whereas with Fenton, I think you can see frustration at times. I think with Watson would have a shot just because with McDuffie, they already have a kind of undersized guy out there. And then with Snead and Watson, you have guys with a lot more length. I could see it happening, but Watson's going to have to play. I'm not just tight. Like the pick six was great. He took advantage of really poor game management and decision-making by the Chargers, and he was in position to make the play. So that's great. But he's been pretty consistent. He's been solid, and he's got a specific skill set that works well in Spags defense. And every week that he doesn't blow it, that's going to make that decision tougher and tougher for them because he's the future, regardless. You know, him and Williams. And they've already had him leapfrog a guy that he was drafted with. So I think that could well be true. It's just going to be tough to accomplish in 4 games.
I agree with you. And I will say this, one AFC Defensive Player of the Week does not make a career. I actually think that not only was that receiver or tight end or whatever the heck he was tired, I think he shielded Herbert's view of Watson and actually bodied him up there. So Watson, again, taking advantage. He had some good reps early as well. But it's one ball game against a team that doesn't have burning speed, which is his weakness. He's the opposite of Trent McDuffie. So Trent can turn and run. He can't body up and play length as much, right? So right. I think Spags' overwhelming proclivity to not play rookies, I don't think he can trot out 2 rookies out of his 3 corners. I don't think his brain will allow him to do that.
Well, and Snead's a third-year guy.
Right, and he's the eldest statesman.
Yeah, while having, you know, Reed and Thornhill are veterans. Brian Cook, you know, man, by the way, could you just hear Andy Reid's wrath when Cook picked up that second?
Yeah.
I mean, that was just like, come on, man.
I love the kid, but I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah, you can't let yourself get baited like that. No, that is a great question. So I think there were a few others, but I know we got to move on. So I don't know what we've got going on in the
well, let's start.
Yes, let's do it.
Spards, thank you. We appreciate your support. I know this is a little bit different, but without Willie, more base rotating of Leo and Elijah or nickel bringing in Cook into the box. Good to see you guys back together. Got the band back together. Thanks, Spards. What do you think they do to make up for against Allen and what looks like, according to the practice report today, they should have Pittman and may have Pierce as well?
Yeah. So I think them saying that Harris is the replacement for Willie Gay Jr. is simultaneously true and incomplete. Yeah, I don't see them running as many 2 linebacker sets. My guess is that what they will do is, and I don't think it's going to be more base rotating in Leo and Elijah. I don't think that happens either. Just because with the way the modern NFL works, you can't. Otherwise, you're putting, you know, you're going to end up with, you know, Leo in the slot against Pittman, and that just doesn't work.
And I would agree with you normally, but if Pittman or Pierce miss, you basically have Paris Campbell and 1 wide receiver.
Right. And so then, and that's the problem with that Sam linebacker position, that third linebacker especially, is it's entirely dependent on opposing personnel, unless the guy you've got playing Sam is, you know, Luke Kuechly, which that would be weird because you wouldn't have him playing Sam unless you had 2 other Luke Kuechlys, which, okay,
yes,
sure.
Please.
If you've got 3 Luke Kuechlys, then run base personnel all day. Actually, I think I may have just discovered something. But anyway, but
cloning.
Even then, a tremendous coverage linebacker is still not a safety. He's still not a corner. They can't carry all the way up the field. Now, some guys can, but not every time either. It's just there's a reason the different positions exist. It's similar to how a physical safety can creep into the box, can fill lanes, can do run fits, but not as consistently because he weighs 210 pounds. And so I think it's going to be a combination of things. I think they're going to see more nickel. I think you're going to see more bringing Cook into the box. And I actually wouldn't mind, because they're deep at the safety spot right now. I wouldn't mind if they let Cook do some things from maybe the slot would be tough for him, but I could see him doing it depending on the matchup. With tight ends, he showed the ability to do that in college. Manning up, he's got really good physicality and quickness to do that with tight ends from the slot. I wouldn't mind seeing them let Deion Bush come in as a guy who fills in, in some of that hybrid stuff. Although he more plays downhill, but someone phrased it to me. I can't remember how they phrased it, but it was like Deion Bush had the highest quotient of who the crap was that plays in the preseason. Because he showed some real physicality. That might be another way of getting around it, have multiple safeties on the field. The only problem you run into there is once teams get wise to what you're doing, they are going to start calling more run plays, and not necessarily just with heavy personnel, but with additional tight ends, because that's the real time when you find yourself disadvantaged, is that wide receivers can block safeties. Tight ends can block safeties. Not all the time, but some of the time. Whereas wide receivers can hardly ever block linebackers. And in like the case like Willie Gay, it looks really hilarious and funny. Right. So I don't know. How do you think they're going to adapt to it?
I actually think they're going to come out in base right off the bat to try to like stifle Jonathan Allen from the get-go, or do the best that they can. I think they elevate Danny Shelton. I think they sell out to stop the run, and they take their chances with whoever the pass catchers are. Because if you look at last week's tape, Matt Ryan ain't going nowhere. Like, you have to feel that no matter what you do, you're going to have a chance to get to him. So take away what you feel could hurt you the most is my thought.
He definitely looked a little cooked in terms of his mobility. Because Matt Ryan was always kind of an underrated athlete. Like, he wasn't like a scrambler, but he could move around. Yeah. And I mean, he's not late stage Big Ben, but he's closer.
You can see it from here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought he was going to be a lot better.
He's within shouting distance of it. And not my shout, because my shout is like a quarter of a mile. And so, hey, thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
But no, wait, I forgot. You're leading this part. Go, lead us.
Okay.
On.
All right. Yeah. You're just used to being in control now. See,
I love it.
I am the captain now. Okay. I think we addressed Lee's. Do you disagree? Would you like to see Shelton, or do you think it's not worth bringing him up?
I mean, I think if you're gonna play Shelton, this is the game, right? I mean. Yeah. It's not going to be against the Bucs in all likelihood. They like to play physically, but I mean, if you're going to play a game where you've got some snaps where you've got Noddy and Shelton next to each other, which would be hilarious. I think they're not going to do that very often.
Sure they are. Bear front. Yeah, let's go.
Get some of that grown man strength in there.
Yeah, buddy.
I think this would be the game to do it. It's not going to be like that against the Bills. The Bills, that's a bummer to have McDuffie and Gay out. That's going to be tough. Tough sledding, because those are two of the guys they have that would do really well in that game. Those are guys that are there for that game. So I do think I could see Shelton. I liked what Shelton did when I watched him. I mean, that dude is huge.
Everybody gets first downs. You need him on first down for this team.
He is a first down machine. And I like Derek Noddy. I like what he does a lot. I would say Noddy isn't as immovable, because Shelton is just immovable. That dude, now he doesn't move much, but he is immovable.
They can't move him, and he can't move himself, but he ain't going nowhere.
He's creating like this black hole vortex in the middle of the field. Right. And that's all you really want, right? Like, it's not like he's playing it at the same level, but you remember Ted Washington, where it was like, that dude is not going to rush the passer, but you know what? He is going to just slowly walk that center towards it. So you got 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, throw. Right. And then if you're like running, it's like, okay, so where can we run that's away from the A gaps? And Shelton's got a little of that in him.
Yeah, I would like to see it personally. Lee, thank you for that one. Info, I'd like to see get more touches. I think he scores this week, you guys. I told you I think his lack of snaps last week was because of the game plan and having to play back-to-back games. Seth, am I wrong?
You better be correct, because I'm getting I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling will figure it out in the offense, but you're seeing some of the limitations with the routes that they have him run. He doesn't deal super well with physicality. He's not a go up and get it receiver, and they're trying to treat him like one at sometimes. Mahomes had 2 missed shots, and I'm going to have the Mahomes film review coming tomorrow. Actually, it's going to be a little late because life came at me fast this week. He had 2 missed shots, and both of them where he forced the ball to MVS deep. One, he had Hardman coming across the field that would have been a first down.
Yeah.
And so it's a little frustrating for me. Also, the Chiefs at times, not Juju so much, which, by the way, even with the game plan, you can see, even though he didn't put up a ton of stats against the Chargers, when you watch, Juju's getting open. He's dealing with physical coverage. He's a guy, he fits right in, like when the Chargers were trying to line up and press. People look at the TikToks and that kind of stuff. Juju is a tough player. Like, if your corner is going to press him, he is going to get beat up, and eventually he's going to get got. So that was nice to see. More should be on the field more based on what we saw in the preseason. And that's been a little frustrating for me. So we'll see, because I know Andy's like, he's a young guy. And it's like, Andy, eventually, you took the guy in the second round. Like, let's get a little more athleticism out there. Guys that can really make them pay right at the line of scrimmage.
Guys like Mike Burton. I have to. I can't let you off without going there. Ready Whip, are we assuming that Dana doesn't play this Sunday? We're not assuming. We just really don't know. So we're playing it 50-50.
Nate said that he didn't expect it. And by the way, shout out to Mike Dana. He's taken a step forward this year.
Yes, he has, in a number of ways, not just in the pass rush, which I think is the most noticeable.
Yep.
But he's controlling the edge. He's not just setting it, he's controlling it better.
And there's a difference. There really is. One prevents a play from going wrong. The other actively works towards making the play go right for your defense. It creates a higher likelihood of a stuff instead of just a 3 or 4 yard gain.
Right. Yeah. It's not just limiting their offense, it's stopping it.
Yep.
I'm with you. Eric Dennison, Chief, who has impressed you the most and who's got to step it up, Seth?
The Chief that's impressed me the most, Mahomes is always on there. Kelsey's great. McDuffie, I guess I would go in a limited sample size. He's looked incredible. Those would be Chris Jones. It's the usual suspects, really. Justin Reed, from what I can see, has been everything they've asked for. He saved them on and I think, who was it? I'm not going to remember. I think it was one of the fellas from the KC Star. He noticed the Chiefs had a snap where they only had 10 men on the field. Reed recognized it and abandoned his coverage to roll back deep. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had anyone back there, and they were able to force a check down. That's like one of those yes. He's played fast. He's played physical. He's played smart. He's really impressed. Bolton has been impressive. He got picked on a little in coverage against the Chargers. Sometimes you're going to get got. Those are the physical limitations that he has. Occasionally, it's going to happen against high-level competition. Who needs to step it up? This is going to add fuel to a kind of unfair fire, but Orlando Brown.
Okay. I agree.
He hasn't been terrible. Like that. That's, I know he's got a lousy PFF grade and all that stuff.
He hadn't been a top 5 tackle either.
He has not. And going through another year of good but not great is not, I don't think the Chiefs keep him around. Like, if you could draft a guy, like Cosme and get the same results with a higher ceiling for a lot cheaper. So we'll see. Because, again, with Brown, there are some very specific things. Because he had a couple rough snaps against Mac, but he also absolutely planted Mac several times.
Yeah.
And overall, the stuff of the 11 flushes that the Chargers had against the Chiefs, where they really flushed Mahomes off his spot. I just got done talking about this in Times Arts. 5 of them were blitzes, which is an unusually high number for the Chiefs. They don't get got that often on blitzes. So because of those blitzes getting home, Orlando Brown and the whole offensive line took a pretty rough beat. And he lost a couple times. But Mac didn't dominate that game. And Mac really looks like himself again, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, I know. Which, Mac's a good player. It is what it is. that iteration of Mac destroys like fish, whereas Brown held his own. In my eyes, I mean, and I haven't charted every snap, but they were giving and taking, and that's what you want against the highest level of competition.
Yeah.
So that's but all that is a long road to a short thought that he hasn't been a top 5 tackle, probably not a top 10 tackle. Now, those are the things you need to see here.
I'm with you, and I think the narrative is going to get worse before it gets better unless he turns that around. And I will tell you this too: watch out for Deo and Ben Banagu this weekend because they're the type that have the length and the dip and the speed to get past him. So those are the guys more so than who's the guy that's going to start for them, and I can never remember his name.
Ngakoue.
Yeah, Ngakwe's good, but I don't feel he's quite as explosive or gives Brown as much trouble.
Right.
So it's funny, folks. It's a 1% matchup difference now that makes or breaks matchups.
Yep.
5-year season ticket holder. Congrats, Jeremy. The first road Chiefs game in Indy. He's pumped. That's awesome.
Nice. Have fun.
Spards, we got you. Sorry, I'm double dipping here. Bandwagon fan, welcome. The question is for the captain. That is you. I'm just Tom Hanks in this scenario. I'm a hostage on a boat. Who's your favorite rookie? Not the best performing. Who's your favorite rookie this season?
My favorite rookie, it really is both. It's McDuffie, and that's a bummer that he got hurt. He just looks so refined at the position. He does not look like a rookie. And again, small sample size, so we'll see. But he looks so comfortable doing everything that they ask him to do. And he's got great feet, which, man, I really creep myself out there. But what are you going to do? But, I mean, he does. He's got terrific
It's not
feet.
that kind of show, Seth.
Yeah. Look, you don't know what I've been doing with this show.
That's true. Well, how would I know?
You know, at about 20 minutes into every mailbag, it's time to talk about feet, folks. And the music with lights come down. So it would be McDuffie, and Jalen Watson would be a close second, just because I really like how he knows who he is as a player. At least he seems to, and he seems to understand what he can do, what he can't do, and he bases his game around that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I do like Jalen as well. And the nice thing for me is that I've seen Jalen progress, and I watched 6 games of Wazoo tape last year, and coming away from that, I was one of the only people even had a draftable grade on him, and he surpassed what I thought he could be already. Nice. So I'm really happy for him. Trent, you guys know how I feel about Washington DBs. So like I knew this was going to happen, particularly in the zone coverage, because he was asked to do so much of it. Washington, it's second nature. He can do it with his eyes closed.
Yeah.
But for me, it's the fact that he's not shied away from the physicality. Now he's still going to struggle. If he were back from Mike Evans, that was going to be a big problem. Honestly, Pittman and Pierce have the advantage on him. They're leapers and they're long and tall. That was going to be a problem.
Yep.
But everything else, I'm really, really comfortable with him, and I'm enjoying how he's engaging on the man side. So that's great.
Yeah.
Bandwagon, thank you for the support. Lee, any word on Niang and how he's doing? I have nothing.
I've heard nothing.
Okay.
So that probably isn't amazing news for him, but it's just unknown. The Chiefs wouldn't share anything until he's about ready to come back.
Yeah. What do y'all think of the end scores? Do you have a prediction?
I think the Chiefs hang at least 30 on them. Gus Bradley defense without Derwin James and Joey Bosa. Maybe he changes things up. We'll see.
Stephon Gilmore's on this roster, folks, and a lot of people forget that.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
He's not Derwin James. I have a 35-21 Chiefs.
Yeah, I could see it being around there.
Okay. Let's see. Brian, if MVS continues to struggle with press man, do you think that Watson could replace him? I don't think that they will.
I don't see it happening. I think Watson's a guy that's going to be one of those guys that the spots, you see him in spots, he's going to produce. The more you uptick it, the more the flaws become exposed.
He's a guy that's going to thrive as a W3. You try to make him a 2, especially a primary X, which I saw some great stuff from Reinhardt today about MVS lining up 27 snaps as the X.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can get the same production from Watson down after down after down. So, and that's nothing against Watson, folks. It's just the way that it is. It's about the matchups.
Yeah.
MVS and McColl need to separate exactly. Didn't separate exactly well against the Chargers that persist. Would it be necessitate Sky Moore in the offense? I don't think they're tied to each other. I think you got to get Sky more involved regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that completely. I mean, that needs to, and I see the next question is that too.
Yeah.
They like his skill set. They obviously got him for a reason. But they definitely need to get more involved in offense. The 2 snaps there, and his credit, he's not out here whining about it or anything like that.
Mhm.
And that's, that's fair. And that's what happens when you play on a team with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback.
Well, and you're going to get yours. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. It's coming.
This would be a fun week to see a little more because I really like his skill set, and he feels like a guy who could produce if he's given the opportunity.
I agree. I'm totally with you. And I think it does click in this week. Bert, good to see you too, buddy. George Karlaftis, 2 sacks this Sunday. I'm calling it. Do you agree, Seth?
I could see it. The Colts line against the Jags and kind of limited stuff that I watched and then listened to smarter people than me talk about it. Their line kind of struggled with games up front. And that's where George so far has kind of made his stake is that underrated quickness and explosion he has, which was always like the people that really watch him, they talked about it. Like, he had a decent explosion off the line. He's still learning to time the snaps. As a pro, you can see he's just slower off the line than he ought to be. But he explodes on those stunts. He explodes through them, and he's got good balance through contact in those situations too. So I think that he could give the Colts some problems with that because that action seemed to give them problems. So I think you could also see like a 2-sack game from Clark too, because Clark hasn't looked any better beating guys one-on-one this year, but he does look faster executing some of those games up front.
Yeah, and that helps. I will say this. I noticed from George's college film that I think I want to say 8 games. He's tighter. He's not taking himself out of the play more to go back in. You know what I mean? He's not leaving the line of scrimmage as much. It's partially because, especially when he's next to Chris, he's getting that push so that he doesn't have to lose depth to gain it on the inside,
Yep.
But I think that's a spatial awareness thing that I didn't see him have in college. So that's another step forward for him.
Right. It's encouraging.
Deldrick, do you think the Chiefs will be sneaky and release Elijah Lee and a new scheme on the Bucs, not this game against the Colts? I don't know. I don't think so. I think, honestly, when they brought him up, it's a 3-week guarantee, isn't it, to Seth?
It's a 3-week money.
I think it is.
I'm sorry. I don't even have a response. I don't think they are I don't think they're necessarily saving anything that special for the Bucs. No. I think if they're saving anything, I don't think Andy Reid really saves anything for anyone, honestly. Now, we know Spags does, though, because we saw it last year against the Cowboys where they just unloaded the clip against Dak Prescott. Because I remember before the game, I was like, don't blitz him a ton. Then he blitzed him like out of step. I was like, never mind. What do I know? Like,
looks like
now, to be fair, Chris Jones was also playing at like God mode that game. And anything you schemed up looks good when your 3-tech is winning 75% of his snaps. But I don't see them saving anything too special. I think knowing what they've got coming up with this, they need to get their ducks in a row for how they're replacing Gay now, rather than like, well, what are we going to try now against the Bucs and the Bills? Because those are going to be tough games.
Yeah, I'm with you exactly. You just got to get prepared. Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate you. Yeah, we do think that Darius will get more. I'm just not convinced how much more.
Right. And they would just have to adjust to it schematically. A couple more snaps in base, couple more snaps with nickel, and then maybe you see like an overall reduction because Gay was playing a ton of snaps.
Yeah. Thank you, Frankie. Appreciate you. Mr. FLDB. I hope y'all's week has gone well, mostly. I think the Chiefs have this game, 34-17. I like that. TDs by Kelsey, Juju, and Burton. Oh, I like the way you're thinking now, man. Rushing by Clyde, 52 yards and 34-yard on field goals, and 2 ints by the defense. Do you concur, counselor?
Sure, that sounds great. I like it all. I like the whole thing. I just want to see. Should have added like Sky Moore gets 80 yards receiving too. That would be nice. I'd feel a lot better.
Yeah, would you? Okay, I can do that. I'll do that tomorrow. And everybody give FLDB a hand. He is our newest administrator on the Discord. So thank you. And he's helped us set that up from day one because I am terrible at it. So cheers, my friend. Appreciate you very much. I mean, I'm about as good at Discord as Seth is at running this thing. So hey.
That's accurate.
Oh! Oh, I had to do that. When is McDuffie supposed to be back? Holly, it's somewhere probably between 4 and 8 weeks. I think it's leaning towards 6 to 8 right now. Have you heard different?
I haven't heard anything different. I haven't heard anything at all. And so that makes you think that maybe the 4 weeks isn't, the end of it.
I'd love to say it was going to be for the Bills, but I don't think it is. Hey, guys, always love seeing you guys together. Thank you very much. We enjoy working together. You guys should see what we yak about when you're not here. Who do you see having a big game, either on offense or defense? Like, who goes off?
Oh, sorry.
Not you.
Kelsey. I think Kelsey gets like $130 and at least 1 touchdown.
Sounds about right to me. I won't argue. I also think that Cook will redeem himself a little bit and make a couple of plays.
That would be nice to see.
Cheever, what are your opinions on Orlando Brown's play? Okay, we just covered that. Sorry about that.
Before you even asked it.
Well done. Furious George with 2 sacks on Sunday, says Paddock. 1? You got 1? Okay. I'll take either. I would just like to see about 8 pressures. I think he had 6 last game. So like he's building
6
up.
and 3.
Yeah, or 3 and 6 or 6 and 3, whatever it was. I think he's building up, and I think he's going to have an opportunity. If Ryman plays, I think his skill set specifically against the other rookie Ryman is going to pay off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys talked about the O-line yet, but thinking that they've been underwhelming as a unit. I think that's the tackles.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, that we've seen Mahomes hit more than we would have than what we're used to. I would say, you really don't know who teams are until you're about 4 weeks in. And the Chargers, they got him a few times with blitzes, and Mack and Bosa are studs.
Yeah. It's plus. That's a tough team, and it's good to get wins even if it's not pretty.
Right.
Was Mahomes being a little shy in the red zone with the new receivers? I don't remember thinking that. Did you?
If anything, for me, I thought it was a bit of the opposite with MVS. Like I said, I thought he forced him the ball a couple times and it resulted in a missed shot where he could have just found Hardman on one and then Kelsey on another going across the middle of the field. And so I didn't notice a gun shyness with them, but he didn't quite look comfortable. His process looked sped up by the end of the game against the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. TPT. Oh, another podcast. That's awesome. I didn't realize you guys were off the ground. Congrats. Any news on Harrison and what are other things that I'm talking about in my video tomorrow? This is Jaden. I didn't put that together, Jaden, but I'm glad. Looks like he was doing some one-step kicks today. I don't expect him to play, Seth. I don't know if you heard anything different.
Nah, I don't. He's not practicing. It's Thursday. That's kind of Thursday's like the day with Reed. Yeah. Now, I suppose it's different with a kicker.
Not really.
But, indoors where things should be a little bit easier, it makes sense not rushing back. And you need Butker healthy for the playoffs. Like, not need. He's a kicker. I get that. But with kicker, I don't really care about the stats. I care about how I feel when they're lining up for a game-winning kick. And with Butker, if it's a game-winning kick, anything like we're talking like 55 and under, I feel good about. Like genuinely good.
Yeah. I mean, one step, I'm good at 55.
Yeah.
And what's more important to me is that I need him to be good at 63 come playoffs. So if he needs 3 extra weeks now, I couldn't care less.
Right.
I need him then.
Yep. I completely agree.
Cheers, Jaden. Everybody go check out Jaden's podcast. Ready Whip, I feel like Mahomes doesn't completely trust his protection because when he does, he just lets it rip all over the field. I don't see him with as much happy feet, I thought. You track it every time, though. Do you have a feeling? By happy feet, I mean
now the stop I just made. I've got to like blur it out too much so you can't like see it too much because then you won't need to subscribe and read it. Happy feet. I only have one snap like that against the Chargers.
Okay.
But he was sped up. He was getting rid of the ball more quickly, and so I did notice that. Oh yeah. You subscribe right there. I'm working on it right now. The week 2 film review. It'll be up tomorrow morning. It'll have a link to the week 1 where I charted every snap twice with Mahomes. Once using my normal methodology against the Cardinals, that is, and then once using PFFs, just to kind of see where I landed with stuff.
I just saw the social part of that. I didn't get to the whole thing, but you and Dan both did a great exploration of how they do it. What did you come away with?
Obviously I don't know what the algorithm or whatever you want to call it that brings it from the raw score to their grades.
Mhm.
The score of 17 equals a 83 or whatever. Like I don't know what they use. I know what I found if I was going to well, here's how I summarized it. And this is, by the way, you can actually on the Substack, you can, oh, hey, thanks for the kind words. If you subscribe on the Substack, or even if you don't, this one's actually unlocked for everyone to read because I felt like it was an important issue people were talking about. So I actually attached a Google Doc that showed every snap, what I put my grade on for that snap. And so what I came away with was 23 positive plays of viewing above average, 6 negative plays, which would be the opposite. The total positive score was plus 18 with a negative score of -4. And so you have about 24 above average plays, 8 of them ranging into the higher level, and then a pair of plays that I felt were quite bad. One of them was just dropping a snap. I mean, what can you do? And then 4 that were below average. And then the rest of the day, he just executed the offense. So I don't know what that would look like from them. It's hard for me to believe that few bad plays with that many good plays would somehow equal a barely above average day. But that's kind of where I got to it in terms of, this idea of a score. And I had a great conversation with one of the guys from PFF where he and I talked a little bit about what you value at quarterback play, whether or not maybe Mahomes gets a bump for doing things more difficultly with more difficulty than he needs to. So it was actually a really good conversation. And it's just worth noting, different strokes, and some people value different things at quarterback play. And so at the end of the day, what you have is one subjective opinion on film versus another.
Exactly. And sometimes I think, I don't know if that conversation you had was with Sam or not, but I feel sometimes Sam in particular, but a lot of their guys that you see on the pods, the guys that I've talked to quite a bit, feel like they have to justify their process a little more than I think they should. Because quite frankly, when you have a junior grader doing the grunt work,
right?
If it's low experience in, it's low experience out.
Right. Well, and then the other thing is, if you're grading every single play, all it takes is a difference. So, if you're going from a scale of -2 to +2, right, in 0.5 increments. So it could be -2, -1.5, -1, -0.5, et cetera, et cetera. All it takes is the difference of small, like a 0.5 or so type incrementalism for even what makes a good play versus an average play. And you do that a dozen times in a game, and it's going to massively vacillate, what the score looks like. And that's problematic. You want to have consistency, but even if you're scoring everyone the same way, unless you have the same guy doing it every time, and even then, things get scored differently. There's a bit of subjectivity to it. And I think that's where the problem comes into play in attaching a number to it.
Yeah.
Because and this is what I'd said previously, and I didn't mean for this to turn into like a bash PFF's process thing.
No.
I appreciate what they do. I genuinely do. I think they are they're a set of eyes that looks at the snaps, and that's worth at least looking at. It's way better than just looking at stats, in my opinion. Because this is at least one person watched this and formulated an opinion based on this. It's a starting point. For me, when you attach a number to it, especially a number that looks a lot like Madden grades, which I find very unlikely to be a coincidence. Yeah. And fair enough. I mean, that's their job.
That's context. Yeah, that's how you contextualize for a fan base that doesn't know better.
Yep, and NFL fans are going to immediately identify with that. Here's the difference. In Madden, a player's grade, his score, his number, it defines who he is in that game. It is that 98 level speed is dispositive, right? A 99 level player is dispositively better than a 90 level player, right? It is set in stone. It's a game's coding.
Interpretation, yeah.
Yep. And by the coding of the game makes it so that this 90 rated player is always going to be better than this 80 rated player over time, consistently. It's not quite the same in real life because it is more of just one person's opinion as they go through the charting. And sure, that grading can be even confirmed by someone else. But I mean, I don't even need to get into what happens when someone is just confirming a thing rather than answering an initial question. Psychologically speaking, we're much more likely to agree with the thing rather than starting off on our own. Again, this is all Seth, how would you do it better? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a monumental task trying to take context and put a finite value on it.
Right. And there's really no way of doing it other than having, sure, you could hire 20 coaches to do it. But you know what? 20 coaches are going to have 20 different opinions.
Yeah.
That's why the draft goes out the way it is. You got guys that didn't think Patrick Mahomes was draftable. These things are subjective. And so that's why I think the best you can do, and this is where I understand why they can't, given what they do and some of the other things that they chart. That's why what I do is I put my numbers on there. And honestly, the whole snap by snap, doing it that way, I'm not willing to take the 2 extra hours it takes to delineate that every time.
Yeah.
But I do try to show my exact numbers. And then I spend about 1,500 to 2,000 words talking about specifically what I see in the film. And I think by showing your work more rather than throwing a number at someone, I do think you can have a better conversation. So I don't know, that turned into almost a high horsey thing, and I feel bad about that. But that's where I think that conversation about Mahomes' first week grade got a little messed up because people don't understand how you get there.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you want to take it hard and fast, and it's not. It's never going to be.
Right.
Folks, we're going to answer a couple more, and we are at the hour already. Shocking how we do this every time that we do this, but FLDB is going to do some simulations. I look forward to those. That should be fun. Yeah, Sean, looks like Darius is going to get some of his snaps. The question is going to be how much are they in 3 safety? I think Chanel can play on running downs. I think they're very comfortable with that. I hope he gets a little pass rush downs as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact they've blitzed linebackers more this season so far. I mean, yes, in 8 quarters, but still. That's tailor-made for sending Leo Chanel. So I'm here for this. Rob, what game do you think will unleash a lot of our playbook, or at least a good amount? Bills, Chargers, Rams. What do you think?
I mean, yes. With Andy Reid, don't think of it so much, at least in my opinion, don't think of it so much as him saving stuff up for a specific opponent. With Reid, it's throughout the year. There's an almost like, think of it as almost like a scroll or something like that. You're unfolding the playbook. This comes from this, comes from this. We're building on what we showed in week 1. And we're building on what we showed in week 2. And yes, he's going to match some stuff up individually with opponents. But with Reid, it's much more about unfolding that playbook. Honestly, sometimes to his detriment. I think Reid could do a little better now. And that's why you see in the playoffs, you usually see an uptick in this game planning for a specific opponent. During the regular season, it doesn't feel like Reid does that quite as much. He unfolds his playbook. And that's why I think during the playoffs, you at times see a little more success because he's a little more tailor-making it to what your weaknesses and strengths are.
Well, I think he's just miserly about it. He doesn't want to let anything out of the bag. Like it's like twisting his arm to do anything new. It's like he's got this whole cookbook all set up. He's probably got 80 plays, folks, that we've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And Patrick will come up with another 20 during the season, I guarantee you. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's just he doesn't want to dole those out. He's like, I'm going to keep that for later. We're doing fine. If we win by 10, I'm happy. Like that's the only thing that sometimes I think bites him. But that's just me. I think they'll need to use a little bit more against the Bills. I'll just put it that way. Cole, wasn't it slightly surprising that Derwin James wasn't penalized? The fine seems in line with what they usually do.
It could have been a penalty. Honestly, I wasn't that bothered that it wasn't. I think you're running into dangerous territory there. I do think if it were not Travis Kelce and it were, say, Juju or MVS that he did it to, I think he would have been penalized. Travis Kelce and Nate Tice talked about this a little bit with the Athletics podcast going up into the season, that he was curious if he'd see a little more of a pitch count with Kelce this year, because he made the very cogent point that teams are just beating the snot out of him.
Nate's got a good point, because he should have one.
Yeah. And they get away with it because Kelce, while he's kind of a svelte looking guy, and he even is if you stand next to him, you would think for just a second, like if you just glance at him for a second, like if you were standing next to him, you'd maybe think he was a basketball player. But then you really look, and I mean, he is every bit of that, 6'5", 255, 260. He's just a really big dude. He's not like shredded the way George Kittle is, but he's a big guy. And Derwin James, for as big a safety he is, he gives up 30, 40 pounds to Kelsey. And that's, you're just not going to see that penalized as much. If it wasn't Derwin James, if it was Khalil Mack that did that to him, probably would have been penalized. And them's just the rules. And should it have been? Probably. It didn't bother me that much. What bothered me more, and Kelsey talked about this on their podcast, is he's done that whole catch and spin so many times. He thought there was a corner behind him.
Yeah.
And there was not. Because he didn't need to jump and then go into the spin. What he needed to do was slow down, just catch and stride, and just walk into the end zone. Because McKinnon, I think, was back there with the guy, and he converted to blocking very quickly. But he didn't know that. He thought there was a corner there, so he spun out, and he spun away from the one guy, and he really spun right into Derwin.
Can I tell you how pissed off I am at Travis Kelce?
No.
I am furious with him. Travis, I hope you see this. Somebody clip this out and send it to him. Travis Kelce's been podcasting for about 5 whole minutes, and he's smoother at doing intros than I am, and I'm mad.
He's really good at it.
He really is. Like, I work hard at that stuff, and I'm generally pretty solid. He pisses me off. He's that easy in just getting it done. Oh, good God.
Yeah.
That's my piece.
No, that podcast is terrific.
It is. I mean, and it's because it's so loose, and because both their personalities come out and they cuss and they do whatever they want. And there's no like constraints on it. Right. It's awesome. Howard, thank you for the support, buddy. How smart did Andy look not going for it on 4th and goal?
I think, and oh man, Howard, I appreciate the super chat, and I understand where you're going with this because it's kind of almost going against the conventional wisdom, right?
Exactly.
And that's to me, that's kind of a results-based analysis. I wouldn't say that he really looks any smarter or dumber for how it turned out. Like, had he gone for it and they got a touchdown, people would be like, see, the process works. And so I would just say, I think it was the right call in this particular game, but I didn't think that it made him look like he's got like a leg up on other coaches. I think it was just the right call in that particular scenario.
I just wanted to see him go for it personally. I mean, and no one's talking about this, but Staley totally reversed himself and didn't go for anything. Like, he became wickedly conservative. I think Andy could be a little bit more aggressive and have the outcomes still be vastly in the Chiefs' favor.
No, I absolutely agree. It's a frustrating thing at times, and it is weird what happened with Staley. I don't know what he was thinking. I know I was relieved a few times when he chose not to go for it. And that's a really good litmus test, like in life, honestly, but like in a football game, coaching decision, if you work in the legal field, legal decision, arguments that you make, whatever. If you do something your opponent is glad you did, or you don't do the thing that he was worried you did, they're relieved you didn't do it, it's not 100% reliable. But that's a good indication unless you know something they absolutely don't know. And I mean, you know it, not you think it, you know it. Generally speaking, you might have made the wrong call. And that happened with Staley a lot. Like, I was relieved a couple times, like, oh, thank God he's not going for it, because they totally would have gotten it.
Yeah, if your opponent is smiling, you did something wrong.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Folks,
that's it for us. Go watch Thursday Night Football. That's what I'm about to do. Seth has to drive home, you poor slug. And I'm sorry, there's a personal thing going on. The Moros are tied up in family stuff, so we haven't had our moderators the last week. Sorry for all the Finns action. And Arise Finns, I didn't think you were out of line from what I saw, but you are getting on people, so let's take it down a notch and put you in timeout for now. You can come back if you can behave with the rest of everybody, but I hope that you guys did well. Sorry for missing out on the chat squabbles there. So, Seth, this is fun when we get to do this every now and then.
This is. I enjoy this a lot. I hope we get to do it again soon. I just appreciate everyone watching. Next week, we'll probably be back to some of our regularly scheduled program, but let's do this again sometime, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. At least monthly, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed it. How do you sign off these days?
I do the same thing that I have done for years because it's just what I do any chance I get. I just tell people I appreciate them watching, appreciate you listening, all these things, the participation. It means a ton to me. I'm excited for Sunday's game. And once again, it is somehow a great week to be a Chiefs fan.